That's why whenever I have like a 3 hour general it was funny that like I'm doing the next time back patio or don't worry about this show. Back podcast. That's like they just a lot of people just like have a deck and the video, so the deck just goes back to the and it's just open basically this like the golf course back.
And I read articles now. I also asked my Oh, I'm sorry, yeah. No, it's I figured it. So, because here's the situation. There's one that we were saying. But we would have to be downstairs. And the problem is we can't visit that today because that's happened there. It's the only place you could put it. They have these so I only concern was it's a beautiful setting. The boardwalks I don't know if she's going to check the maybe And also, I actually did see something I'm telling you, this wedding was probably $100. It was crazy. So we loved it. So we stayed Friday, Saturday night. Sunday we stayed with Michael's friend that his daughter got married. They flew us to San Diego. So Wednesday, then we took Palm Springs. Have you ever been there? Loved it. And we stayed at a new hotel I found. It's called the Thompson Hotel. It was right there in the center of town. It was awesome. It was great. So we stayed there on Friday, and then my girl, we took it. It was 4 hours. We stopped at the dam. And so we got to Vegas. We stayed in the window. They have a Friday, Saturday. Saturday we went into some delicacies. And it's not like loud, like crazy.
Okay, hope you all enjoyed your lunch. We're excited to kick off our Meet the Media panel. I'd like to now introduce our moderator for Meet the Media with the Public Relations Council of Greater Atlantic City. She is the founder and creator of GoToWhitney.com, a content creator, an influencer, and a go-to resource for all things happening in Atlantic City, the Jersey Shore, Philadelphia, and the surrounding areas. Whitney Ullman's vibrant personality and positive coverage of all things entertainment has earned her over 9 million views on the GoToWhitney and the City Pulse social platforms. Whitney has been a Fox 29 contributor on Good Day Philadelphia since 2014 and has frequently appeared on TMZ Live. Her unique style of video format and live content was ahead of its time. Whitney is an indispensable resource in promoting businesses and can do the same for you, your business, or your company. Her City Pulse website receives thousands of hits every month, and this entrepreneur can also aid your business with her company, Win Promotions. Leveraging her various connections, Whitney's talent staffing company can provide you with models such as mermaids, ring card girls, bartenders, and more. Without further ado, please join me in welcoming Whitney Ullman.
Thank you. Are you guys having fun? You ready for this panel? I'm going to talk more about me, but we have all these superstars here, so we're gonna get started with that. But I just want to say thank you to the Public Relations Council for doing these events every month. I always find them very informative, and I know we were talking today about getting more people in the community involved, because I know years ago we had a lot more people coming to the events. So I think it's important that maybe we figure out why people aren't coming, and then let's start reaching out to them, because I think that these events are important and educational and informational, and we get to meet some really great people in our area every single time. So I'm appreciative, and thank you, of course, for making me moderator, because I love all these people here. Everybody is unique in their own way, and it's pretty cool to be able to do that. And of course, being in the media for so many years, it's not always easy, and some of us do the tough jobs. I'm looking at Linda because I'm like, damn, she does a tough job. So anyway, I know that everybody is ready to kick things off, so I guess we'll just get started. I would like to introduce to the podium Scott Cronick. He is our first speaker today. Now, we had everybody's bios on Facebook and out there in the social media, so I'm sure you read everyone's bio, so I'm not gonna read the full thing, but I'll introduce him as a media maven. He boasts a diverse career spanning journalism, radio hosting, and entrepreneurship, and community activism. He has an impressive background, including roles at WOND, Shore Local, NJ.com, and now is the co-executive director of the MBCA Foundation. He's also a respected figure in South Jersey with over 30 years of experience. So Scott, why don't you come up to the podium and let's talk about media.
That just means I'm old. Where'd my speech go? It was here. Did you grab it?
No, I don't have
Did you steal my speech?
No, I don't have it.
It was here.
You can wing it.
Somebody took it. There we go. Thank you. All right, now I can speak. There we go. Hi, everyone. Thanks for having me. Thank you to the PR Council. If you were at the Host Awards last year, this might sound a little familiar. I took my speech there and kind of adapted it for what you're going to hear now. But to everyone, thank you very much. Pleasure to be here. A real honor. So thank you to Ben for and everybody on the committee for asking me to be here. So I guess what I want to say is, sometimes one decision can change your life, and to me, that was deciding to move here to Atlantic City. So for those that don't know, when I list all the things that I love in life, Atlantic City is on that list, and Atlantic County and this area, because how could it not be? Atlantic City changed my life to a degree that I never ever imagined that I would be where I am today. So 31 years ago, I came to town. Linda was in the sports department when I got there about 2 years later, and she could tell you I was a cocky 22-year-old kid who thought I knew everything. Now I'm 53, and I know I didn't know anything, right? So to add another cliche to the mix, and I know good writers should avoid those, but looking back at it all, moving to Atlantic City, seems kind of like it was my destiny. So I grew up in a small Polish town in northeast Pennsylvania called DuPont, in the coal mining region there in northeast Pennsylvania. My football team, when I was a kid, literally was called the DuPont Coal Crackers. That's the truth. My dad, Joe, everyone called him Crow, was a tasty cake driver. Everyone loved him, and not just because he gave them crimpets. He was just a super guy, and he and my mom were loved everyone. And I hope that I am following in their footsteps a little bit. She's 82 this month, and she has more energy than me. So God bless her. So by 16, I kind of knew what I wanted to do. I was reviewing movies for my high school newsletter, and a local newspaper saw somehow that I was writing those and asked me to write for them. So I started writing for them, and then my cousin had this idea to start a newspaper, and we did that when I was 18 years old. So we did that, and a few years later we actually sold that when I graduated college. So it was called the Greater Pittston Gazette, and someone just posted something recently about to remind us of what that was like, and it was amazing. So I kind of always knew that I wanted to write. I always knew that that was kind of in me, and went to the University of Scranton in my backyard. Started a theater group when I was there. My first job out of college was in Quakertown Free Press in Quakertown, Pennsylvania, and a newspaper that was started by Ben Franklin. So it was the oldest newspaper in the country at that point. So I was very blessed to go work there for a little bit. I left there about a year later to come to the Jersey Shore. I was dating my intern. Her parents had a house in Brigantine. I liked it. I was like, why not? And I applied, and I got a job at the Press. And one thing that, I think I lost my microphone. Not that I need it, but
You can click the button on the side.
did I hit it? There. Oh, that's back. Okay. I didn't hit anything. So my first job was at the Current, which also Linda worked for, right? Did you ever work for you? Yeah, right? Yeah, you worked for the Current. And we all missed those days when the Current, oh man. Well, it's all right. I think it's probably probably a battery's dying. The Current was, I think, really missed. It was just such a great, really hyper local news thing back when people read newspapers from front to back, and I learned so much there and really cut my teeth there. So when I was a kid, my dad and mom would always save their money to come to Wildwood every year. And I always fell in love with the shore, and I think that's part of that destiny story that I'm getting at, is that I loved it, loved the shore, loved coming here, and I think that as soon, and I grasped onto it, and I never looked back. I always remember, even when I was a little kid coming to Atlantic City and looking at the Playboy bunnies, I was like 10 years old when the Playboy Casino existed. You know, it was back in the day when my parents would literally give me like $5, and I'd go in the arcade, and that would last me for hours to spend in the arcade while they went and gambled away my inheritance, and the Playboy bunnies would literally be like walking all over the place. I was like, all right, and then that's a good memory. That makes me want to come back, right? So, and that's kind of why I think, again, I just had this affection for this city. So those trips to the Jersey Shore undoubtedly shaped who I am. So when I applied to work for the Press of Atlantic City back in '94, I actually didn't know I was going to get the job. I worked there for 28 years in sports and news, for the Weekly, for then eventually for Atlantic City Weekly, and then at the Shore Magazine, where we launched a bunch of events there, including Wing Fest, which I still do today, Burger Bash, a bunch of stuff. So my career revolves around reviewing restaurants, critiquing concerts, promoting positive things in South Jersey. Without those things, I would have never been able to interview Gene Simmons in a cabana on the beach. Kiss is like my favorite band, so that was like pretty awesome. I would have never had Morimoto make me sushi that he handed me at Robert Irvine's wedding. I was like, wow, that's pretty awesome, right? So it opened up doors. Sammy Hagar gave me a bottle of his tequila. So those are the fun stories, right? But along the way, there's a lot of hard work. And Snoop Dogg, this is a good story. Snoop Dogg one time wasn't doing interviews for his tour, and he then heard my last name was Chronic, and he goes, I gotta talk to that guy. So I got an interview with Snoop Dogg because my last name was Chronic. So that was fun. And then we were there, we did, Whitney would know Top 40 Under 40, which she was very much involved at with the Chamber. We did those events. And just lots of fun in those 28 years at the Press. So if I didn't make that decision to move to Atlantic City, all of this would have never happened. I wouldn't have been able to meet people like Pinky Kravitz, who ultimately groomed me. Legend who used to come to these meetings, I believe, at one time, if I'm not mistaken, and he kind of groomed me and got me on the radio, which I'm still doing today, thanks to him and Dave Kosky. And now, because of the Press not being what it was, the Atlantic City Press not having the staff that it has, I think a lot of people turn to the radio. We don't have a TV station, so I think a lot of people turn to the radio and to us for news, which hopefully I provide on 4 to 6 every day. I try to interview the newsmakers, people like Sean Riggins over there, and Tom Gilbert when he was the commander of the tourism district. And I think that we do our part to try to get as much news as we can out there, and I really take that seriously. So along the way, we also did some special events, Dancing Under the Stars. We adapted that, my old boss Mark Blum, when I was at the Press, and with Cookie Till, we raised $1 million in 2 years for charities, including the food bank. So as we know, right? So that was huge for us to do that. I guess what I'm trying to say is that you can use your skills and your relationships for good things in life, and I hopefully did that along the way. So if I didn't move to Atlantic City, that destiny, there wouldn't be $1 million for the food bank. That's the way I look at it, and I'm glad that happened. So I'm continuing to do all those things. I write for Shore Local, which I think is filling a nice void there in the community with some great thing. I work for 7 Mile Times with Dave Kosky down in Cape May County, doing some news for them. And what it also did after the Press laid me off, or however we want to put it, it opened the doors for the MBCA Foundation, which Gary Hill and John Schultz are just amazing people, what they've done. We just had our luncheon on Monday for scholarships. We gave away $30,000 in scholarships to 19 students and a teacher, and that number keeps growing every year, which is we're really proud of. I think
In the 28 years that they've been doing that, they've given out more than $400,000 in scholarships. So that's nice. And as Gary tries to retire, even though he's kicking and screaming doing it, I'll start taking a bigger role in there. And but Gary and John are just such an influence, and so glad that they've asked me to helm the MBCA Foundation, which we want to do some projects to make the city a better place to live, work, and visit. That's our new mission statement. So we're going to do that. And then also, part of that, I'm on the Chelsea and the Midtown Economic Development Corporations, and hopefully try to help them move the city forward as well. So I guess the most important thing is, if it wasn't for me moving down here, my destiny, I wouldn't have met my wife, and probably wouldn't have my son that I have today, and all those good things. So and all the friends that I have here as well. So I really appreciate everything that has happened to me to move to Atlantic City. So I know that I am blessed. Now, so remember, Atlantic City is a special place. Not only do we have a beautiful beach and coast, but we have some of the best restaurants in the world. We have, I think, more entertainment than probably any other town on the East Coast, and that includes New York, believe it or not. I'm talking about headliner entertainment on a weekend basis. If you look, that's actually true. And also, we have beautiful, kind, and generous people to work alongside, like all of you, and amazing opportunities to grow as professionals and human beings. So the world has changed, and so has media, and I think that Linda, Ed, and I are going to speak to that once we open this up for a question and answer session. But that doesn't mean we have to give up, even though it's different. We just have to adapt. We have to use social media to the best of our ability. Print is not dead, but it's getting there, right? And I think that those that survive will thrive, like Shore Local. I mean, all of a sudden, Shore Local is 100 pages every week. Why? Because there's a need for that. You know, there's a real niche for people that want to read the news and get their kids pictures in the paper for, you know, the football game that they played, or whatever it might be. The charity that raised money for whatever, that put the check presentation in, as well as some hard news as well. So I think that it's sad to see what happened over the years, and that newspapers are kind of going away, but we just have to embrace what the future is. And the fact that really, when you look at it, and I used to tell people this all the time when I worked at the press, when we were at our peak, and that was when I worked there, say in the 90s, we reached about, on a Sunday, Linda, about 100,000 papers, right, guys? Probably about 100,000 papers. So they used to say a newspaper would be shared by an average of 1.5 to 2 people a newspaper. So, so say 150,000 to 200,000 people that would reach on at its peak time. But if you look at a story that gets posted on social media, and you look at the amount of hits that get, I think when I left the press, they were getting about 2 to 3 million hits or page views a month. There's more people reading some news stories than ever because of that easy access. Now, so as journalists, we have to realize that, but as PR people, you have to realize that there's even the smaller places are getting huge concentrations in readership because of the easy access that they have on social media. So there's really, when you think about it, more people looking at news stories than ever before. They're just looking at it differently. And there's not that immediate way to justify or to verify how many people are looking at everything. But trust me, when I write a story about a restaurant, and I see that restaurant is full that weekend, I know that we're still being read and that we're still making an impact. Or if a press release goes out and gets picked up by various social media people, and it gets shared and shared and shared, and that event gets well attended, you know that it's still working, and you know that it's making an impact in our community. So I think that while it's hard to adapt for us older folks out there, it is, and it might be sad to have to adapt that way. Doesn't mean that we're not as strong as ever, and that we can make an impact out there, and we can help organizations, whether it's selling tickets, and it's also to, like Linda, who's the best at it out here, to break news, hard news that people really want to know, whether it's courts or cops or things like that. Linda is tremendous at that, and to also, Ed is our photographer, to look at photos, and actually, Ed will probably tell you, to look at a photo on the screen is way better than looking at it in a grainy black and white newspaper. Right, Ed? That's probably absolutely true. So we have to embrace how things have advanced, and I think that we'll all be better off in the future. So anyway, I think we'll address most of those other questions that have been thrown at me by Ben during the question and answer session. I hope that tells you all about me, and I want to thank you again for having me, guys. Thank you so much.
Thanks for stealing my speech.
That was actually pretty good, because some of my questions you answered in that whole last half of the speech, so that's good, I like that. Okay, so let's bring up our next speaker. We have Linda Cohen. She is a seasoned journalist and founder of Break KC, and she dedicated over 3 decades to reporting. Her impactful career includes covering Atlantic City crime and the Atlantic County court system. Notable achievements such as receiving the NJPA award and being honored as a Stories of Atlantic City. So Linda,
No one stole my speech, I don't. I figure I've been at this long enough. So actually, I didn't have to make a decision to come here. I was born at Atlantic City Medical Center. My mother was the first person in my family who was born in the city. Everybody else was from Philadelphia. My father drove both a taxi and he had a jitney. It was 189. If you every time I see it, I think of my dad. My mom went to Holy Spirit High School when it was in the city. She actually lived across from the lighthouse at one point. So this is where I came from. I was a math science major when I started at ACC, before the other city. But, and then one of my, I always loved writing, and one of my professors is actually Julie Hoffman, whose husband at the time was the interim publisher at the Press of Atlantic City. And I found out she got, it was my first job on a newspaper was as the editor of the Atlantic Review, and my sports editor was working at the press, because Julie helped him get a part-time job there. And I'm like, well, what about me? And so that's how I got at sports. I was the only woman back there. Mike McGarrett actually walked in and asked Dan, my sports editor, and now ex-husband and son, and father of my son, asked him, so this girl, she know anything about sports? And Mike McGarrett, that's actually good, right? So I was working there, and then the Currents, we went into there after, it kind of followed you a little bit, I think. Because Dan took your job when you left and went to, we switched places. He was at the Currents, and then we were at the Press. So I started doing that, and then there was a merger at one point, and all of Atlantic County and the Currents, so they stayed together, but I was covering the Ocean City one, so I got dropped into a totally different area. So I learned how to adapt when it came to news, and then somehow I got back with the Press as a copy editor, and then I missed reporting, so I went back, and my dream had actually been to be the cop reporter, and I kind of earned the respect of a lot of the public, I think, so I think I did well. I actually had the former, you'll know who this is, the former chief of police in Hamilton Township who did not like the media at all, and then went on to have a public information job for another law enforcement entity, once told me that he tells people now that I changed his mind about reporters. So my thing is, and that leads to, I guess that's probably enough about me, but that leads to kind of the kind of relationship that we can have. I think that there can be a partnership. We can't always be friends because, especially with what I do, I have to be objective. I have to, if something bad happens, I gotta call you too. So that's the whole thing. And my, know your audience when you're sending press releases or trying to get people to come to things. A lot of times now, because, like with me, I am breaking AC, so I don't always have time to do a lot of that stuff. Unfortunately, our former employers, they have, I think, 4 reporters now. So
when Linda and I started, there were, I think, almost 100 reporters and photographers. I think they're down to 4. Yeah.
and they copy and paste press releases a lot of the time. And with me, I think, write it in a way that, your audience is who we're getting you to, but you need that first step first. We're the ones who get you there. And so, kind of write it with that in mind, that maybe it's gonna have to just be kind of pasted. None of the, playing it up a little too much. I know that's a PR thing, but a lot of times we don't want it that way. We want readers to read it as kind of a news thing rather than, they're advertising themselves. So that makes it a lot easier for us. And if something bad happens and we call you up, it's talk to us. Even if you can't say anything, there's out of this county, a prosecutor that I've spoken to, and I'll message and be like, hey, what happened with this? And they'll get back to me and say, listen, I can't answer that. But at least have that relationship. It's, I say to people, I don't care what people say to me, it's as long as you talk to me. And it's not about us, it's about our readers. And that's why I know people always ask me for social media and stuff, why do you engage? Why do you talk to these people? Why? Because that's what we're here for. We're not here to be Scott Cronick and Ed Lee and Linda Cohen. We're here to be the voice of the people that we're writing for. We're here to ask the questions that they want. What do they say? Howard Stern became who he was because he asked the questions people want to ask. We're here because it's giving the information. Things shouldn't be done in the dark. People should know what's going on, and that's the important thing. And so I think if there's one thing you take from it, that from today, from me, is that's what I say, just talk to people. And it's very important, I know you're just starting out, it's important to have those relationships because people aren't gonna trust you first thing, because a lot of them have been burned too much, and I'll see things in the media and I'm like, this is why they hate us. There's a reason. It's not, they don't just pull it out of thin air. There are, I'm lucky now. I started breaking AC after I parted ways. Is that what we're calling it with the Press of Atlantic City? And now I'm actually part of a bigger group where Nanette is actually for downbeach.com. We have 3 papers now in Cape May County, or 3 sites, Sea Isle, Ocean City, and Cape May. We have, and then there's some Philly papers too, which is why we're able to have a lot of that sports stuff now. And it's really good because it's recognizing that there's a local audience, but then it's also able to bring in that other stuff. I'm able to get a little bit of the fluffier stuff to break up that, the stuff that people need to know, but people don't want to be like, oh, all you do is put up mugshots and cover court, which are very important things. People should know what's going on, and a lot of times I've had people trust me to reach out. I had a woman a few years ago call me at 11 o'clock at night because someone had called her from one of the prisons and said her son was in the infirmary and she didn't know what was going on, and she was in tears, and it's 11 o'clock at night, there's no one she can call, and I told her what she needed to do because I've dealt with people. And that's the thing too, you need to have those relationships on all sides. I'm not I get along with law enforcement, but they're not the only people I know. Like when they had the raid of Florida Avenue with the drugs and everything, the mayor said to me, I knew stuff that happened, and the mayor was like, you've been on Florida Avenue? And I was like, you think I only have sources in the police department? So that's what's important, is relationships. That's what it's all about. I'm Aunt Linda in Stanley Home, so. And I think that means a lot to me. Ed was telling a story about when we went on something and people were like, oh, you with Linda Cohen? And they wanted to meet me. I went out the one day and this guy's yells out my name, and I turn around and somebody else is like, you're not Linda Cohen. And here I realized later, because the 2 guys with him looked familiar, that they were plainclothes detectives who were questioning him about a shooting when I was there. So, I knew the detectives, I now knew the guy. So, like I said, I'm rambling a little and I'm sorry, but that's kind of the relationship stuff. So that's what's important on all aspects. So I think that's it. I think the rest can probably be answered if there's any questions.
You don't have to go that far. Okay. All right, thank you. That's so informative. I love it. I have so many questions myself. I wish we had more time. Okay, so now we're going to bring up Edward Lee. He's an award-winning photojournalist and multimedia specialist with over 35 years of experience. He's known for capturing some compelling visual narratives He's also worked with major publications and served as the CEO of Snapshot, I think that is what it's called now, Snapshot Photography LLC, so serves. He's also offers full service photography and multimedia solutions to a diverse group of clients. So let's all welcome Edward Lee.
I'm going to be short and quick, even though I'm from Atlantic City, born and raised. Name is Edward Lee. My father is William Lee. Bill will know this. If anybody is familiar with Kentucky Avenue, that was where my father's barbershop was at, right across the street from Club Hall. So he had a lot of dealings with like Miles Davis and all kinds of crazy people. So I learned a lot from him. A very, very smart man, probably just very, very brilliant. I got into photography because of him. He wanted all his sons to be barbers. We were all barbers, and then one day we all quit on him. Said, I'm not going to do this, Dad. I'm not going to do it. I'm going to do something else. He says, all right, go ahead, do what you got to do. And I just picked up a camera and started doing that. So I started my career as a commercial photographer, and I'm not sure if any of you guys were around back then. There was a guy named Bill Borelli from PDI, and he used to do a lot of commercial photography, and worked with Bill for so many years. And then Scott Stetzer, a staff photographer for the Press of Atlantic City, comes up to me at an event and says, why don't you come over? We need a photographer. And I was like, nah, Scott, I don't want to do that. I don't want to be in the media news business. That's not me. Later in that evening, my wife says, give Scott a call, see what he's talking about. So gave him a call. He says, come over, see what, we kind of like what you're doing. I was like, all right, let's try it, learn something new. I didn't realize I was the first staff Black photographer for the paper out of 125 years at that particular time. So it was kind of weird to me. So very talented group of guys, from Ben Fogletto, Vernon O'Brodnick, Michael Wine, Danny Drake, and also these guys are awesome. So I knew I had to kick up my game, and I knew I had the background of lighting and commercial side. So I kind of started doing stuff that they weren't doing. I ended up winning a national award that was like kind of a big deal back then, and I was like, okay, that's not enough. Let me keep on doing what I got to do. So I kept on doing what I had to do as a photographer, and so it became a situation of this staff was probably one of the best, and not saying it because I was on it, but it was probably one of the best staff of photographers on the East Coast. We won a lot of awards. We were very, very talented, and we were kind of known around the area amongst photographers. So it was pretty cool to be that in that group. So, but what else? Working with Linda and Scott. Being a photographer for a newspaper, it's like being a plumber. I have to do everything. So if Linda's doing a breaking news story of a murder, I have to be there. And then I got to run over and do a food story with Scott, like 20 minutes later. So it's like, how do you come down from one thing to the other? It's like kind of a weird deal. So
yeah, but you didn't complain because I fed him all.
Yeah, exactly. So it was just a weird deal of.
You didn't get fed at the murder scene.
No, exactly. You should have fed us, Linda. I should have said, Scott, give me lunch, or somebody, But it was definitely a weird situation of doing that, kind of servicing everybody, as well as being a photographer. It was always not to be seen. That was my important job, was not to be seen, not to disturb the scene, or not to be noticed by anybody. So that was kind of one of the things to do. Now, not working for the paper anymore.
Hey, before you move on though, Ed's not giving himself enough credit. Ed was one of the greatest sports photographers that you're ever going to find anywhere in the country. And he used to be honored for it all the time. He didn't mention sports specifically, but that was his, when there was a major thing that had to be photographed that was sports related, they sent Ed.
Yeah. Last Dance with Michael Jordan. So when
Bobby
Michael Jordan,
Yeah?
when Michael Jordan did his last dance in Philadelphia, or his last game in Philadelphia, I had to go. Iverson, you know, it was.
Yep.
I guess it was just part of the job. It was just something to do. I love doing. So, but just trying to wrap it up because I know we gotta
Yeah.
go.
We just want to have questions and answers.
Yes.
Great job, Ed.
So I guess we'll open up the floor, we don't have a microphone, but if anybody has any questions.
I think the battery's dead.
Battery.
Testing, testing. Well, I don't know, maybe it'll go out. Why did my voice change? I'm like, oh, testing. Okay, is anybody, I'm like, oh, hey. Okay, so do we have any questions for you guys? I know, well, first of all, how many people here are new to the Public Relations Council? Are there new people in the room? Okay, that's good. Okay. Hi, welcome, we're excited. So I was just curious because, we are PR marketing professionals, and I know you guys were talking about the difference between, back in the day, we had just print, now we have everything's online. How do these PR professionals pitch you now to get a story written?
Email, but yeah, I mean, for me, it's email, because I have a bunch of different affiliations, and, but overall, I think that.
Okay, I think that, there's nothing that, I think that a lot of PR people sometimes think, oh, well, is this a big enough story, or is this a big enough thing to bother somebody with? And I think that if I don't take the story, I'm gonna know somebody that might. So I guess, depending on who your client is or what the story is that you're trying to pitch, never be afraid to send that out to somebody. We get so much stuff that you'll be surprised, like what interests Linda might not interest me or Ed, but it might interest somebody else that we can pass down the road. So I don't think that when it comes to what your topics are, pitch anything and everything, because there's always an angle that we might be looking for. There might be something that piques our interest that might not be something that exactly was what you had in mind, but it might be something that we can put our own twist on, or it might be something that we know somebody else that's working on something that might be able to use it. So I guess what I'm trying to say is that, like, you might not think of me for a hard news story that you normally think of Linda for, but I say give it to anybody and everybody, because that was always my thing, is that, when I would send out press releases and work for people as a freelancer, that I would send it to everybody I know, because you never know what that angle might be that I would use, even though you might not think of me as that kind of reporter or that kind of journalist. Does that make sense, Linda?
Go ahead. You're good.
No, and like I said before, writing it, thinking about what we're gonna put out there. And the local angle is a really good thing, not just it's happening here, but maybe who's involved. Like when I get sent things by, Stockton or something like that, when they put in that this student's from Galloway or this student's from Atlantic City, it's going to get, I know it's gonna get a lot more play. People are gonna be interested to play that up. And also, photography is an important thing with it as well, because a lot of times when we get stuff like that, and think of a main photo, that's more important to me than the smaller photos that can go in, because that's gonna be what shows up with the headlines. So, like, if you're just sending a different picture of each person in it, then you're just getting like a headshot of the guy who's gonna be one of the people going to be speaking. And, we really don't wanna do things like that. And if you have to go into the whole editing all together, it's a lot of extra work and maybe it won't get done. So things like that, that's what.
Yeah, I have a question for the PR people. Like, when you guys do events, do you think about the photography side of it in the sense of like Linda said, like, your angles, like what are you gonna do and how are you gonna promote it? Like, that's a question for the PR people, as well as copyright situation, because I got something to say about that. That's kind of.
Yeah, you can say it now, but I was just thinking it too.
Yeah.
Go ahead, elaborate.
It's getting weird now with a lot of copyright situations. People are taking cell phone pictures that maybe work for Linda or someone, and then all of a sudden they leave the company, but they still own the picture. So as a photographer, we own the image. So you have basically, if we come up with a contract, one-time use or year use of the image, that's fine. But, you know, a lot of people are leaving and all of a sudden, you know, the PR company is still using it 2 years, 3 years later, and they're getting sued for $10,000 per use, per image, you know, because you didn't get permission from that person to use the image later on, or you didn't buy them out, or however it goes, whatever wording you use for your contract. So a lot of people are getting sued because of that situation. You know, it's becoming a situation that way.
Yeah, it's not okay to just grab somebody's
Yeah,
property and use it for your press release, and I see it happen all the time. You
Yeah.
know, so just be careful with that, you know, it's, it is a wild west out there, but if you use the photo for the wrong person,
Right.
and they sue you, they're probably gonna win.
yeah.
Yeah.
Well, if we would use a release form, does that still apply?
A release form? No, not for the photographer, because I, as a person who took the picture, still owns the picture. The release form is just the release of you,
The person.
You need
But-
a release form from the photographer, Ed, right?
You can, it depends on how you word it or how you kind of work out the contract once again. Like, so if you hired me and say, hey, listen, you know, I have this event and I'm going to use these images for a year, okay, that's, you know, you paid me and you use it for a year. But after that, now it becomes a situation of you gotta repay me or you gotta do another situation or what have you. But it's a lot of guys, like now I send all my images to a copyright imaging to the government. So I can see who's using my images. So it's getting that way now. A lot of photographers are doing that. So it's best to be upfront with a photographer and say, hey, listen, you know what, I'm gonna hire you and this is the contract and this is what we wanna do. And then after whatever you negotiate with, you know, you can kind of say, next year we're gonna use it or we're not gonna use it.
So if someone hires you for an event, do
Yes.
they own the pictures? Because
No.
they hired you for that event?
No, they don't.
Well, it depends what the contract is.
Right,
Yeah, but
right.
I mean, I'm
But you've been compensated.
Yeah, that's-
But that's a great point for a great example, and this is the way a friend of mine said out of DC. Back in the day, when you brought a DVD for a movie, you can't sell that or copy that DVD. Remember that copyrighted image you can't use on a video, that you can't sell this, whatever. That's under a copyright law, you know. But it's only, you're paying for the service, but you're not paying to own the image itself. It's weird, but that's how it goes.
But as a PR person, you can put in your contract, and you work that out with the contract that you do
Right.
own those images to use for your purposes,
Right.
right, Ed? So,
Yes.
in other words, it could be for infinity.
Exactly.
Depends what your contract says.
Right, it
So-
has to have to be in the
Yeah,
contract.
but also, from another PR standpoint, like when you're sending us releases, please don't make me track down photos to go with your releases. Like, so in other words, if, you know what I'm trying to say? So if you're, I don't know, Visit AC for Atlantic City, if they're sending out a release about the Beer Fest, for instance, you know, they should be sending me a picture or several pictures that I could use of the Beer Fest.
Right.
So that I am not chasing down photos, because I'm just less likely to use that press release, if
Right.
that makes sense. Or now I gotta hope that I'm not using copyrighted images that I find off the internet to use for my purposes. So make journalists' life easier and legal in the sense that when you're sending out a press release, send some photos or videos to this day. Now, video obviously important too.
Yeah.
Because it is a pain in the ass, frankly, to have to go and chase down images, and then I find them and I'm wondering, oh man, who owns this thing?
Yeah.
You know, so.
Yeah, I just did a year contract with the city of Atlantic City to try to eliminate some of that, Scott. In other words, I'm the city photographer for the year. Even though we can't give you enough on Linda, but Scott, if Scott needs something that's gonna promote anything, you know, he knows it came from me and it's okay for him to promote it and to use it. But, you know, it becomes something else if people don't make that clear to photographers, you know? It's kind of weird, but it's sad. But the scary part about it now, a lot of photographers are sending all their stuff to the government. It's a copyright site that they upload their assignment, it goes right to the government, and all I gotta do is say, what did VFS use? And I can see who used it. You know, I don't care if your mom and pop used it for whatever, it will pop up, you know? Like that picture I took of you.
Yeah,
You have a question over here.
Could you please clarify that the photos you took when you were an employee of the Press of Atlantic City still
Right.
belong to the Press of Atlantic City?
Yeah, that's right. That's a different ballgame, right? Yeah, because I was hired by them. But now, when I first came on, this is crazy. When I first came on, AP had a ruling that if you were an AP photographer, you were only allowed to use for personal Associated Press. If you were Associated Press photographer, you were only allowed to use for your personal use the first image and the third image. So if I gave them the third image, I can only use the first or the third image. It's weird of my film or my digital copy. So I could not use the main image I gave to the Associated Press for anything. You know, I can use the before or after image. So it became that situation.
So, Ed, you know, being that most of us are PR people and we're doing so many events throughout the year, you know, it's hard to, like, we file all these photos from different events that we have. So is that something then, if someone wanted to hire you, you would just put it in a contract saying that, because, you know, it's hard to remember.
Yeah.
We
It
just
has
pull the photos and use it whenever we need it.
right.
Okay.
That should be the first. If you were hiring me then, I would sit down with you and say, hey, listen, you know, like, what are you gonna do? How long you think you're gonna use it? You may use it for a year. You may use it for 2 years, but just have it in the contract.
Right, and then sometimes, like, 3 years goes by, we need to reference that photo and use it again in the future.
And then you can say, all right, so if you wanted to use it for the third year, I can say, then, like, give me $50 for it, or give me $60, whatever, you know, for you to use it a year, another year, or what have you. So, but it has to be somewhat clear in the contract, because a lot of people, Linda and I were talking about this, it's a couple of photographers that are making a living. They're making a great living off of just suing people, you know? So it's like $10,000 a pop, or whatever it is, and then you got some lawyers, some companies that they love this, you know?
Is there anything that you guys can recall that, you know, a lot of us have done check presentations and ribbon cuttings. Is there anything you've seen over the years that kind of really stands out, that you admired in a PR professional that kind of did something different or separated them from the other PR professionals?
No, you take it, go ahead.
I'm not sure.
Say that again?
Like, you know, a lot of us do check presentations and ribbon cuttings and that sort of thing. Have you seen anything over the years that you can recall that really stands out and wowed you and was different?
I can take this. What was his name? Oh my goodness, Brian. He works at the hospital. What's his name?
Okay,
Brian Cahill used to do the boxing stuff for Caesars, and he used to have this elaborate, crazy stuff on the boardwalk with not the king and queen, but like.
the
Cleopatra,
Caesar.
right? Yeah, like coming out and stuff like that. You know, like it was just really cool photographic wise. Before a ribbon cutting or before a fight or a big event, Brian Cahill used to do great stuff like that.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard. Check presentations are tough to kind of make interesting. Let's be honest. My advice is just, you know, no one's probably going to, other than print and reprint, just make it easy for the journalist to be able to take that press release, make it as because especially now, like Linda said, in the press lines here, they're basically reprinting your press releases, and so are the weeklies. So just make it how you kind of want it to be read, and it's probably going to go in verbatim for the most part. Supply a photo with it. And just I think you'll get results that way. Yeah.
This is more for Linda. Do you find your job in danger at times?
There's only been like a rare couple of times where I've really worried about anything, which I think probably surprises people because of what I do and because of some of what people have said. But what's interesting is, because Ed was talking about this before we stood up here, and he was saying how they asked where I was, and they were like, she writes all this stuff, and then they were like, well, where is she? We want to see her. And she's like, why? He's like, and that's the whole thing. When I see people in person, they really don't. There's no attacking, there's no anger, there's nothing like that. And that, there was one time, like, I was searching something, and I found someone was like, she doesn't know that I know what her car looks like, and I know where shit. And at the time, my son was young, and I'm like, putting myself in danger is one thing, but now you're saying something about my family, so I did have that looked into. And there was one other thing with the person like me where I live. But a lot of the time, I mean, there's actually people out there who would stick up for me, which is nice. But no, you would think I would, but it really isn't. I don't feel that way. But
To answer, I don't think so. I think your shelf life is forever. I mean, it's so weird to, like Linda said, I mentioned this to Scott, and we're on the scene. Linda and I are on the scene, and it's like some crazy murder scene or whatever it is, and I'm like, oh my God, I don't want to be here. And Linda's like, I'm walking, and I see these people, and they say, who's doing the story? And I said, Linda Cohen, where is she? They going off on me. Oh, Linda, she just do all kinds of crazy stuff. And I said, well, she's around the corner, so you guys need to probably just go around that way. No, I want to go see her. So I'm like, oh, no, I got to protect Linda. Linda, you're the best. I'm like, what? they love, I don't know if it is the craziness or, I don't know, they love it. It's so bizarre to me.
I will say the one thing I'm proud of is that the people who I've had people say think I'm horrible or whatever.
A lot of respect. They give you
I
a lot of
remember
respect.
sitting outside a Board of Education meeting one time. They were all in like executive session, and I was just typing something up, and a woman came over and she said, I used to think you were one way, and then you did the story with something happened with her niece's son, and she's like, she said you were so helpful and you just really cared. And she's like, I learned the whole, she's like, then I realized what you do. And she like, they were going over to the 7-Eleven or something. She's like, you want anything? We'll bring you something. And I was like, no, I'm fine, thank you. But I'm like, I'd rather it that way than the other way around. Like once people, they think you're great and then they get to know you and they're like, oh my God, she lied, she did this, and it's very important. That's the other thing with us is that I remember there was a week when I was at the press, 3 different times someone said to me after I wrote a story, you wrote what I said. And I said, how could all these reporters be doing something, like other reporters record, they video, I wasn't, I just took notes and then I realized it's about context, which is a very important thing because you can say something and I can quote you exactly what you said, but it could be taken a different way than you meant it. You have to put it in that context, so that's an important thing too. And I do respect the people that I cover. I do actually love Atlantic City. There's a special place in my heart for Atlantic City. My mom grew up there. She lived in Pitney Village. She lived in the Virginia Courts, like before everything, and it's always meant something to me. So I know people think I hate it sometimes, but I actually, I think in that's part of it, that you have to care about what you're covering.
Speaking of covering.
Then we have to get it.
That the story, talk about the story about the young ladies that got murdered, the 4 prostitutes. And, yeah.
Well, we're gonna end on a high note.
I
Prostitutes and, yeah.
But Linda did a great, it's so, just the whole situation she handled it very, very professional. I mean, it was just so good. That's all.
Thank you, everybody.
I don't think so, in my opinion.
Not as we know it. I think that maybe somebody will buy it or something will change, something, but I don't know. I mean, remember, they still get a lot of paid people. I mean, they have a huge database of people that read their stuff. And they're still making money or they wouldn't exist. So I don't know in 5 years what it'll be. I think it'll exist somehow. It might not exist with who owns it. But I think it'll be there in some way, shape, or form.
Just like basically online, that's it?
Just online. Yeah, they won't be printed. There's no way it'll be in 5 years where you get that print paper. No, but I think it'll be online.
Does anyone have any other questions?
I just have a, so, like, Whitney's like part of new media, really. She's a content creator, and mostly her method is social media and what we're all holding in our hands and everything. You guys have credentials of traditional media and background, and I just wonder with how current media is derived from people we don't know whose credentials there are, but we're getting news from our phone. And so apart from Whitney, where you're not doing the hard news, but asking the hard news people, so who are these people? How are they to be trusted? Is it real? Like, now that we're all in this, stratosphere of like, what's real, what's not real, I don't know if you have any commentary or / advice for how we consume news stories. Are they real? Are they legit? How do we know? Because like, they don't have credentials that I can say. Linda Cohen has been with the press of Atlantic City for 30 years. Well, so
it breaks my
it's
heart
kind of
because
like
there was a time where, you had to go to school to be a journalist, right? I mean, I went to school for journalism. Linda went to school, and you were vetted, right? Like, you did, I memorized the Associated Press handbook from front to back. Like, most people on social media don't even know what an Associated Press handbook is, right? So it is alarming, and also I think that a problem is today's news cycle. I always say, if you want the news, look at ABC, CBS, and NBC from 6:30 to 7. Right? They tell you what happened, right? And I think that, whether they're liberals or Democrats or Republicans, I think that something happened along the way where people have been stopped understanding what's opinion and what's news, right? From 6:30 to 7 on ABC, CBS, and NBC, they tell you what happened. They might choose stories to tell you or whatever, but there's no opinion from 6:30 to 7. They're telling you that a plane crashed, the stock market crashed, or succeeded today, President Trump gave this speech without opinion. This is the speech he gave today, and this is what was said. And then there's the talking heads that are on the rest of the day on Good Morning America, or they're on CNN, or they're on Fox News, or they're on CNBC. I don't care which outlet you pick. There's a difference between news being presented to you and opinion. And 95% of the news cycle is opinion, right? And somewhere that line has gotten blurred, right?
There's also the age group, though, that isn't getting their news from television, they're getting it from here.
Well, that's why it's important. I think, it sounds like it's a stupid thing, but I do believe in Googling things, because if you see, you're like, oh, that's an interesting story. Is that true? And you kind of Google it and see what other things have been said about it. But I also think that's what's important about having the local news that you have, because you can trust someone. But the thing is, it's not even people who've decided they're reporters that are out there. You have to remember, I try to tell, when I'm trying to get information from like police or anything like that, I try to tell them, you need to get that information out now, because once something goes out, people believe what they hear, and it's not a whisper down the lane anymore. It's somebody posted on Facebook. If somebody's seeing one of their friends what they posted, and they're seeing, and they see what I posted, they just know, oh, I read that online. They don't remember if they read it from me or if they read it from somebody who was just making an assumption about what happened. So suddenly, 3 people are dead in the street, and there's cops at the hospital in a standoff because somebody wrote that. Just like they just had that arson where the guy was arrested in Ocean County. And apparently in January there was video of him at another bonfire and he was being bullied, and everybody's like, well, why did those other guys get arrested? I'm like, and I looked into it, I'm like, that video's not from then, and I'm like, no, I saw it online. And it's like, that's all they remember, they saw it, they didn't look at when it was, they didn't look, I mean, how many times have you had somebody text you and go, did you hear so-and-so died? And you're like, they died 3 years ago, like, where were you? But when it shows up, they don't look at the date, they don't look where it came from. So, you know, you kind of have to be your own fact checker, unfortunately, but.
Just because somebody has a radio show, or just because somebody has a place, that doesn't mean that they're real journalists, right? I mean, because I take great pride on my show, and I know we have to go, I'm sorry, but I take great pride in my show that I have Republicans, Democrats, liberals, conservatives, they're all on my show, and they all come on my show because I don't take sides. I let them present the facts. And other shows, you'll only hear one side because they don't want to present the other side, or those people have made decisions that I'm not going to go on that show because they take such an extreme point that I don't want to be shared with them. So, you know, listen, like Linda said, know who you're pitching to, know your sources, know who you're going after, and try to, you know, depends what you're trying to pitch, but be careful because some of these journalists are going to bite you. They will.
But if you do hear anything around here crazy or anything, always message me.
Yeah.
No, people do that. They're like, I didn't see this
No, it's
anywhere.
true. Like, find a journalist. That's a good point. Find a journalist that you know and you trust, and we could probably help you along the way. Like, hey, I'm not sure about this person. Do you know who this person is? And Linda, Ed, and I, or whoever, can probably help. Oh no, stay away. Or yeah, that's a good person. So that might help. Yeah.